Walmart's not going to take your package of lettuce if it says tomatoes or the GS1 barcode says labels on it. And in the most extreme scenarios, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, life sciences, a labeling error can literally be a life or death scenario.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chains, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reid.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show.
Reid and I just had a great conversation with Nick from TEKLYNX. We talked about the importance of labeling and the importance of not having a lot of touches on a process and how integration from a barcoding and labeling perspective and make all of that as seamless as possible. He talks about the cost of a fingerprint. Each touch is money. And one of the things that Reid and I giggled a little bit about was right now we have file, open, print, and pray. And maybe that's not the best method. Enjoy.
Hi, Nick. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad you can spend some time with us today, and we're going to dive into a whole bunch of stuff. But before we do, as always, can you just give our audience a little background on yourself, what you're doing at TEKLYNX today, but a little bit more of how you got to where you are today as well?
Yeah, absolutely I can. Thank you, Reid. Thank you, Liz. I'm Nick Recht. I've worked at TEKLYNX it'll be 17 years this May. Countdown begins. I'm hoping my marketing crew plans a big party. I want them to be bigger every year till 20. But I actually got my job here at TEKLYNX right out of college. It was a fun situation. I applied for a job at a staffing agency, like work at the staffing agency, and they said, that job's full, but we can place you somewhere. It was the best scam I ever fell for because I ended up working at TEKLYNX, and I have a degree in managing information systems with a focus in business. I started in a support role. I was actually packing boxes in production and then on the phone helping people troubleshoot our product. From there, I moved around the company quite a bit. I worked in a advanced engineering role, supporting our enterprise level solutions. Then moved to a product management role. I actually spent 8 years as the enterprise product management here. And that was certainly a fun time, not only on bringing our product to the modern age, but also transitioning a lot of our licensing over to subscription-based models. And I've spent the last 4 years as the director of sales here at TEKLYNX, overseeing both sides of the Americas business sales, the enterprise sales for our integrated and automated solutions, as well as our label design solutions that are sold on more of a commodity style where decisions aren't necessarily being made based on ROI and whatnot. They're being made on, have I used this before? Do I know how? And is it the right price to get the bang for my buck?
I love this story already. I kind of see the undercover boss thing happening a little bit down the road and future CEO. Some folks are like, oh, he's in sales now. I appreciate salespeople more than most, being a former salesperson myself for many, many years.
Yeah.
But I do really love the fact, you started out in just boxing, shipping, support, troubleshooting, then engineering, then product, now sales. Like, you're really getting the full 360 view of the inside and outside of the business.
I often talk to the salespeople or the technical people, and one of the things that I mandate every time is we need to get you on site with a customer. It's one thing to talk about a supply chain. It's another thing to be in a business seeing machines automatically package things, automatically in what we care about the most, print and applying labels to those boxes. It's really an important thing. And I think I wouldn't be an effective leader in the sales organization if I didn't follow those stepping stones that I mentioned of actually supporting our products, becoming an expert, driving the strategic direction, now helping people beat the drum on why they should spend their money and really how it'll ultimately end up saving them money in the long run.
Why don't you take just a second and just share with our audience, high level elevator pitch of TEKLYNX, just so people know exactly what you all are doing today.
TEKLYNX is a company, or a software company. We make barcoding and label making software. So at our core are label designers. if you're an audience member and you're scratching your head on who is TEKLYNX, the light bulb might go on when you hear Label Matrix, Label View, or CodeSoft. Those are our 3 flagship label design brands. They are really meant to be geared towards varying levels of complexity in labeling and printing environments. From there, we go to the portion of our product suite that I'm really the most passionate about is our enterprise level products. We make software solutions to integrate with your ERP system or your warehouse management system, or fill in whatever system you'd like to click print in there. We make a solution called Label Archive that is a security and traceability solution. So if you're a pharmaceutical company, medical device manufacturer, anybody in the life sciences space, there's heavy regulations around approving templates, the data on them, and printing. And then our final product is a product called TEKLYNX Central that takes all the solutions I spoke about and bundles them into an umbrella that lets you deploy a website for printing labels you might manage in-house with your suppliers and your contract manufacturers, letting you manage that entire centralized labeling solution, potentially throughout your global organization, potentially keeping people outside of the business. So those are our products, but at our heart and soul, we're a software company that really wants to help people experience efficiencies, ranging from the smallest company having to print the labels for their muffins like the bakery up the street, to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies who have strict sub-second SLAs on time between clicking the button and the label coming out of the printer.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you had talked about your experience packing the boxes and having folks go into customer sites and seeing that whole process. And I wanted to talk a little bit about automation and how we hear about automation. I mean, I was just on an internal call about a conference that all of it was about automation and moving things and moving robots and all the things. But I was hoping that you could talk to us about automation and how it is meant in the context when you start thinking about the labeling and print processes that you all work with every day.
I can't agree with you enough that automation is something that it's always talked about. And when you think about automation in the supply chain, the first thing that comes to mind is the robotic arm putting the packages in the box, or my favorite is the palletizer machine, the one where all the boxes go on it and it whips in a circle and gets wrapped in plastic, right? And sometimes even automatically being put on the truck. Where we play more in the automation realm is making sure that pallet that's wrapped is identified properly, that each box that goes on that pallet has a label that not only has accurate data, but is often printed in a fashion where the user isn't making a decision. So if we zoom out a little bit, I like to reference a statement my father-in-law made to me probably 15 years ago when he asked me, he's like, Nick, do you know what the most expensive thing in my business is? He worked at a beer distributorship in a brewery. And I was like, no, what is it? And he said, it's a fingerprint. He's like, every time we need to touch a unit or a box or a pallet, it costs so much money because it takes time. It is prone to error. I really think about that cost of a fingerprint when we look at automation in the labeling world. Every single day, we receive phone calls from companies that are very large, that every time they print a label, which could be hundreds of times a day, they follow what I should have trademarked as the file open, print and pray method.
We have something exciting to share with you, a special podcast discount for our favorite event of the year.
GS1 Connects.
That's right, our annual supply chain focused conference, and this year it's in Las Vegas 2026.
I cannot wait. Reid, how many GS1 Connects have you been to?
I think it's been 7. This year will be 8.
That's awesome. I have been going to Connect before it was called Connect, so I very much love meeting all of our attendees every single year who bring so many great examples from grocery, food service, retail, and healthcare about how they solve supply chain visibility challenges. And in 2026, Las Vegas gives us the perfect excuse for a few puns about how GS1 standards can help you make bold moves that lead to big wins.
Oh, I see where you're going. GS1 Connect is your chance to deal yourself a winning hand in operations with the power of GS1 standards.
Wait, GS1 Connect is also the perfect place to hit the jackpot on connections from the exhibitor floor to the networking tables and forge high-value relationships that pay dividends long after the bright lights fade.
Learning strategies worth betting on for sure, Liz. Hear from trailblazers across industries and walk away with bold insights that help you turn risk into reward.
Okay, I think that's enough puns for the day, but maybe one more. If your supply chain feels like a roll of the dice, GS1 Connect in Las Vegas is your sure bet for success. So mark your calendars for June 9th through 11th and join us at GS1 Connect. It's time to take your supply chain game to the next level. And this year we have great news for anyone ready to plan to attend.
That's right, Liz. We do have an early bird registration is officially open. If you register by March 31st, you can save 10% on your conference pass. Just head to connect.gs1us.org to secure your spot and take advantage of the early bird rate. Whether it's your first time to GS1 Connect or your 12th, like Liz, or more, there's always something new to learn and new people to meet.
Again, the website is connect.gs1.org. Don't forget, register by March 31st to get that 10% early bird savings. See you there.
File, open, print, and pray method. We should make a t-shirt.
Well, if you think about it, a labeling software is similar to any Windows-based application. You are storing files in a file system. You'll say open. You might pick from a list of hundreds of them. You select that label. In many cases, you're then selecting the printer you'd like to print to. You're often more fingerprints to pick the data or manually type in the data. And then you're clicking print. And then you're praying you didn't make a mistake, because the cost of that mistake sometimes is time. But based on the industry you're in, it could be a recall of food, right? Walmart's not going to take your package of lettuce if it says tomatoes or the GS1 barcode says labels on it. And in the most extreme scenarios, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, life sciences, a labeling error can literally be a life or death scenario. Now, I'm not trying to paint the picture like people are dying when things are mislabeled. It's more often major business ramifications to quality assurance procedures or remedying a mistake. But either way, I think you can see that when somebody's manually printing a label, the room for improvement is massive. When we talk about automation in the labeling realm, we're talking about removing that process, removing that file open, print and pray process that's prone to error and timely, and replacing it with labeling becoming the result of an action in a business system. I don't have the type of job where I often get to choose exactly what I'm going to do every day. And if you work on a manufacturing plant floor, you definitely don't. If your job is making shoes, you look at the order list for that day and say, okay, I'm making white shoes. It's often a business system, an SAP, an Oracle, a JD Edwards, something homegrown, Global Shop Solutions, whatever it might be, that's telling you what products you need to manufacture or assemble or package that day. When we talk about automation, we're talking about connecting with that single source of truth to make it so that labeling and the labels that print become a result of an action in that system rather than a user making those decisions on the fly. It's not even the cool print and apply robot that's slapping the label on over and over. It's even deeper behind the scenes than that. But I love that question because it happens every day. Automation is on many layers.
So the irony here for me is the first podcast we did here at GS1 US was about robotics.
Yeah.
And everyone came in just as you described it, Nick, with the vision of a physical robot in the arm and picking it up. And everyone was like, Reid, why are you doing a podcast on robotics? We're a standards organization. I said, no, I'm talking about software automation, robotics, software integration with other software systems, which is all databases, and having a standardized syntax is really what helps. So when we're talking to our manufacturers and our brand owners that are facing so many complexities and different requirements, what are the biggest impacts you're seeing today from label automation? I mean, I think you hinted at a couple that I was picking at, but I wanted to make sure that we highlight this and I don't miss it.
I always find it best to frame this conversation in the ROI realm, right? There isn't a lot of white space in labeling, right? That's two jokes in one, right? There's not a lot of white space on the label, and people are labeling today. It's just, how are they doing it, right? So I tend to see the biggest benefit come from two major categories. One is, how much time can I save? If a company's doing something manually, it is a time spend for them to do it manually. And that time spend can come on a variety of different fronts. It can literally be, it takes me a couple of minutes to select the right label, to populate the data properly, to look it over. The time spend can be on, that process is not as easy to use as it could be. So every time we hire somebody new, and often the people printing the labels are a pretty high turnover job, so that's happening quite regularly, it takes a lot longer to train them. And then really is that error-prone process, the time it takes to remedy an error. Let's say it doesn't get out the door and we identify that problem before the shipment leaves. We still need to relabel everything. You might be wasting packaging. You're also wasting the time to do that. The other side of it is really just the cost savings. And this is going to sound like a shameless plug, right? But it's really not. Often an organization experiences the greatest benefit from deploying automation when they're somewhere north of like 10 production lines. If you're a smaller business, labeling things manually, the bang really might not be there for the buck when it goes to automating out of your business system. Often, if you're that small, you don't have a business system that would make sense to automate out of. When you get bigger and you're the 10, the 20, the 30 lines may be doing 10 a day, and it taking you 3.5 minutes to stage a label to print, and then another couple minutes to quality assurance. You're talking hours saved by automating, and you're also not maintaining a product on each one of those lines that has a cost associated with it. You're maintaining one centralized product that's driving data to all those lines. So you're saving the time and the money on the one side of doing things more efficiently and reducing errors. Sometimes you're literally saving money on maintaining less software because you have one solution driving 10 lines versus an individual application at each line. Other side of it is centralizing not only drives those efficiencies because you're driving things from a centralized hub. Often an organization is using a variety of different products and they can't even maintain standard operating procedures because they do one line like this business unit that they acquired from a different place, they just adopted their procedures and they can't adapt to change quickly because the business is doing so many different things so differently.
Feels like a change in business process and shift of way of thinking to get to all these different benefits. It's like a mapping process to make sure that one and the other and they all make sense so that things do work together and you're rethinking. It's like a paradigm shift a little.
Yeah, it's definitely a mindset shift. And I can tell you, it takes the right type of business leader to kind of see the benefit there, to recognize the cost of the fingerprint and all the different areas in which you can save time and ultimately money within your business by deploying the various automations and integrations. I cast a lot of lines. I only get to set so many hooks when I'm in my current sales role. But one of the ways that I see a lot of light bulbs go off in C-levels' heads is when we start talking about EDI or the electronic data interchange of the past. And if they're a medical company like the old HL7 systems, I believe they were called, where it was like, we need to standardize methods of communication so things can work better together. And when we explained to them, like, well, you might be managing an Excel sheet with the same data in your business system that you exclusively manage separately for labeling. And while you could have things crispy in a business system, they could be sloppy in that Excel sheet, ultimately leading to the product that hits the consumer's hands being having an imperfection on it. I'm here in Wisconsin, and we have a grocery store downstairs that we all shop at for lunch. And I have 3 small children, and every time my wife and I have a date night, we get them ravioli to make, because the big one can make it and we know they're all going to eat it. And it like significantly reduces us of getting a chance of a call where we're out saying that something's wrong. And for years, the instructions to make the ravioli had a mistake on it. I spent years trying to penetrate that organization, and I failed, but I was happy to see that labeling error is not there anymore. Be it in the business I'm in, Liz, when I see labels that aren't nearly perfect, my wife is like, oh my God, don't do it. I'm like the guy from the Progressive commercials, but exclusively with labeling.
Yes.
We have been talking about 1D and 2D barcodes. And so for everybody who isn't familiar, 1D barcode is what like you scan on the back of your soda can that goes beep at point of sale. And a 2D barcode is what we all recognize as a QR code. And I was hoping to get your feel for the transition between 1D, 2D, and then if you want to sprinkle in other data capture methods like RFID here, that would be amazing. And just what are you hearing and seeing in your business when it comes to moving away from just that 1D data?
Yeah, and Nick, before you jump into that, like there's one thing we always reference QR codes as the 2D barcode, but there are lots of 2D barcodes. There's lots of data matrix, GS1 data matrix, there's lots of different types that are out there. And the other thing I find in the US, QR codes came out about 5 years ago with COVID, been around for 30 plus years. So please, I'm sorry to interrupt on that, but I think it's important because I find a lot of our audience doesn't recognize that.
Being in the biz of barcoding, the tried and true linear barcode, the ladder style, some people refer to it as the fat and skinny lines. It has its limitations though. If we peel back to what I was talking about with like business systems integrating to ultimately drive the efficiencies to make it so the data in one system can be leveraged everywhere, including the label templates you drive in. As a consumer, I know personally, I am interested in having more information on my package, my product, everything. And we're living in the world right now where the UPC code probably won't go away too rapidly, right? That's ingrained in everything we buy, everywhere we go. I mean, heck, half the time I shop now, I'm not only the consumer, I'm the checkout guy, booping that barcode myself. But depending on the goods, I have a higher expectation to be able to interact with that product to get that information beyond being able to Google it, which is where that 2D barcode comes into place. And where I think we play a role in it, the collective we, GS1, TEKLYNX, everybody in the automated identification and data collection space, is really facilitating the ability to make it so that, one, that data can get on that paper faster. Two, educating the brands out there to say, hey, you want to be able to give your consumer more information. If you don't have a product that gets endlessly long, that linear barcode is going to run out of space pretty quick. I just like to talk about that a little bit to kind of lay the foundation for the 1D versus 2D. I mean, ultimately, the reason for a 2D is it can hold a lot more information in a lot less space. Where I see businesses going and adopting it, obviously, we've all been outside a restaurant, scan the QR code, maybe even before COVID, to do our review on Yelp or get more information or take us to a menu. I was recently in Vegas, and there was 2 restaurants I went to where you had to QR code the menu, which upset me a little bit because I was like trying to spend time with my significant other, but we ended up on our phones looking at the menu separately, right? I do think there's a time and a place. But as data grows and the consumers demand more access to that data on the label, and businesses want to meet the demand of that consumer, I think we're going to see more and more adoption of that 2D. And then, of course, with Sunrise 2027 and you guys over at GS1 doing us the solid of laying the framework for how to get that information on a label so it's usable among the masses is really the driving factor that I see early adopters diving on. As you guys probably know, as a standards organization, there's not as many early adopters as there are late adopters, right? But the adoption's happening, and I think it will continue to grow. It also touches on the RFID side of things, right? The RFID encoding, it's another way to give business systems, consumers, electronic data interchanges access to more information without consuming more space on a label. And there are some pretty cool happenings happening in the RFID space right now to advance the adoption of RFID and kind of the standardization of it that I think in a way goes hand in hand with the 2D barcoding, as it's kind of same reason, different technology applications.
We have the next level supply chain, but internally at GS1 US, we refer to this as the next level data carriers, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the UPC ladder, single black and white lines that we all been used to for years and years and years, which is still being used, still works really well, still being adopted. What I think a lot of folks, they refer to us as the barcode people, and we love that, but we also support this unique identification in a 2D barcode. We support it in RFID. We support it in blockchain. Goes a lot further beyond that because at the end of the day, we're providing a registry of uniquely identified companies, products, and locations. I mean, that's what we boil down to. We do three things: identify companies, products, and locations, and use it in a ubiquitous vocab word of the night last night in my house. My son was studying for the SATs and he had ubiquitous. He's like, Dad, what does that mean? I'm like, I can give you a couple examples. Yeah. I felt smart. He hit me with three other words. I didn't know them. So we're not going to go down that path. But Nick, maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about the automation specifically supporting 2D barcodes and RFID that you all are working on right now, because we see RFID labels that have barcodes on them because of the different areas within the logistics of the supply chain. They're leveraging one or the other or using both to cross-reference and certify. And there's a lot of different use cases out there, but maybe you can just share a little bit more about specific applications.
Yeah. I think kind of the overlap of 2D and automation. When I started a long time ago and started really getting passionate about operational excellence and efficiency in supply chains, a lot of the barcode scanners that were being used were still like the wiggly lasers where it would only scan linear. Now, don't quote me on it, but it's just what I see. I believe a majority of them are using imaging technology, and that change has really made it so that you can read a 2D barcode as well or better than a 1D barcode within the supply chain. And at the end of the day, there's not too much benefit to automating labeling out of your business system if you're still manually doing everything else within your business, right? It tends to be one of the later things you adopt down the line. So I'd say now it's more widely adopted, and being able to contain more information in that 2D barcode just makes it a little more seamless to be used within that supply chain. I know my computer can consume a whole lot more information than I can, and that system to system interchange is really, really where it's at and where the 2Ds are being leveraged the most. And I think we'll see a far greater adoption of it in the coming years with Sunrise 2027, where we'll see the big name retailers demanding the 2D data matrix more and more. I know there's a few out there that currently do it, but more and more to say, hey, I don't just want, the G10 and the lot. I know you can get the, G10 lot, manufacture date, expiration date. Maybe I could even see all uniquely serialized items within the package. And that's not even touching on the part that I'm still boning up on the knowledge of where that links to to the secure web page that contains that information as well, which really has unlimited data at that point, right?
Yeah, I personally think that it took a while for the barcode to kind of take place in retail, right? We all see it at the grocery store, and then it's been adopted. And you can have your own proprietary barcodes, but we're seeing retailers now that had closed loop systems, their own identification, now moving to an open standard because people want more transparency. They want to see, is it recyclable? Where was it manufactured? How long has it been in place? They want this. So like the globe is driving that, but we're going to be in this, I don't know, Liz, do we call it, barcodes 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever it is, but the adoptions are typically faster. 2027 is kind of when everyone's coming together and you're going to see it, and we already are seeing it. We just came back from a conference over in Europe, and they were talking about what they're piloting and what they're doing, and we're seeing major retailers here piloting and testing. But I think that the waterfall moment's going to be a lot faster. It's not going to be a 20-30 year run. It's going to be a build up to 5 years and then up. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm forecasting, but I don't know for sure.
I'd second that notion. As a player that plays in a variety of different industries, I've always found it fascinating how different industries adopt different technologies and the speed in which they do it, the efficiency in which they deploy it. So what I'll say is the fact that I've seen the adoption of 2D barcoding in food means that it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere because they tend to be the late adopters in that industry.
I was wondering, Nick, if you have an example from market or from conversations that you've seen where implementation of labeling or print automation has helped an organization. Like, what was the onboarding? What were the outcomes of that? Because I think hearing a story, like a real life story, would help kind of put this all into perspective.
Well, so first, I'd encourage you to check out all of our case studies because our case studies are so awesome. But I'll kind of take you through one of them right now. And the case studies, they all overlap a lot of what we're talking about. One of the recent ones that I think touches on a lot of topics from today is with TaylorMade. They were, like many of our customers, labeling, obviously a very successful company. Now that we've mentioned this, you'll go somewhere today and you'll see TaylorMade on somebody's hat. It's inevitable, right? Just how life works. So they weren't doing things broken and they were definitely being successful. But we were fortunate enough to earn their business, and really the 101s of automation that got it. They were doing things a little bit manually. They wanted to do things in an automated fashion. They wanted to eliminate the fingerprints of people making choices at the time of print to make it so that labeling became a result of their business system. The case study's a fun one, and one of the things they mention is they were having demand from their customers to incorporate on like the receiving labels, product specific details. I am not a golfer by any means. I do go to the driving range and pretend like I know what I'm doing every now and then. And I have a lot of friends who will tell me about the grip, the flexibility of the shaft, the head, where I need to hit it, how, and so I can only imagine the variability from club to club and the challenges that could cause in labeling. And then it kind of all hit home for me when my boss here won a silent auction at a school or something and won a free custom made putter. I went in his office one day and he's like, he looks a little worried. And I'm like, I have to answer 35 questions of my putter. I was like, that's ins. And I was looking at it, was the size of the grip, how you want this, the angle of the head. So I thought it's a good read, and it really highlights the benefits of manual to automated, and then taking it to the next level to say, hey, after we were automated, we had a demand for a pretty unique application of a 2D barcode, and we were able to do it. We had the data, we had the system, we had the process. Now we can adapt to change. I should have mentioned that when we were talking about how automation was like I'd say the third huge benefit is the adaptability to change, right?
That kind of jumped off at me when you said it. So when folks are coming in, hey, we want to print in a different area, or we want to try a different style, or do a quick little test batch, does the automation slow down? Does it help you speed up? Does it make you more agile? Because sometimes people think like, do you know how much coding I had to put into this to get the automation to work? And now you want me to tweak this?
Well, yeah, I mean, there were printers before there was label design software, right? So there was a period of time where people were printing barcode labels and didn't have an interface to interact with to design that template. Many of those companies have done that forever. They're writing the zebra printer language to make the change. And when somebody does say, hey, we need to change the size of font, you need to make sure you have like a good bifocal script, because you got to get in there and do that coding. And when you have the automation and integration in play, a change like that is really somebody opening a system and saying, hey, I'd like it to be Times New Roman, not Arial. My tech support group, and I suppose I tend to get in the weeds more than I should every day. Now that we have it, you can go to a legacy GS1 linear barcode and change it to a data matrix, and then just check a box to say, make the human readable stackable instead of real long. The changes are really a couple of button clicks, not anything else. And when it comes to new lines, my favorite is when I have a customer that I work with, any of them say, hey, we just bought this company and I need to deploy labeling. And I'm like, right on. Then I check out their ticker and make sure to capitalize on them. I don't do that part of it, but it's always a point of anxiety, right? Like we use SAP, they use JD Edwards or Infor or NetSuite or whatever it might be. And we need to bring them into our process. Often it's easy enough to say, let's take a look at their labels. Are we adopting their procedures, yours, add a couple of printers and they're done. Versus the legacy way of looking at it is either coding more ZPL or potentially saying, all right, well, we'll just run their labeling completely independent and have a nightmare years down the line.
Yeah. Nick, this is fascinating, but we're running out of time and I want to get to our last two questions. And Liz, I'll jump in here first, but we always ask these two questions at the end of our podcast, and we appreciate the time you're spending with us today. But what we would like to know is, what is your current favorite technology that you're using either personally or professionally?
I want to know how many people you've asked lately that didn't say AI, because I'm sure
we should actually run that through AI. We should actually have them analyze the podcast.
Because my favorite technology is the fidget spinners.
Yes.
I was not an early believer in like the large language model AI, the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, all that. And I've like two kind of milestone things that happened in the past couple months that said, all right, I'm in. I have a group of engineers that deploy our enterprise level products and do a couple of them do small complementary customizations if they're needed, whether it's an enhancement to the product or something small that makes sense, right? And one of the guys came to me and said, Nick, I struggle with writing SQL code, and part of the project that I'm on requires me to convert a lot of data to a different set and find matches and whatnot. And I was like, well, just like any good boss, I said, that's a you problem, not a me problem. Figure it out. All right. I said, all right, well, let's try to figure it out. We'll talk to somebody else. He pulled up ChatGPT and he took the two data structures and he put them in and he said, make me a script that'll find the similarities and differences in it. And it wasn't perfect, but I was like, wow, this is like a real world business application that made us work so much more efficiently to do it. Because there was a while where I was like, I get it. It can write a song, make a funny picture of me with two heads. There was that. And I was like, that's super cool. The people here know that I get a little jacked up sometimes, a little excited. And I went around, I was like, I hope none of you went to school to be a developer because your job's getting taken by ChatGPT right now. So I thought that was a pretty cool application. And I think it's something that's really business applicable that you can exploit and do. And the other is when the increase in the quality of resumes I've received in every position I've hired for in the past 6 months, they're just so much better. And it struck me about 2 weeks ago that I was like, I bet you these people are just telling these things to make it and it's perfect. And so I went in and I like copied and pasted my LinkedIn and I said, make me a resume for a VP of sales job at a Fortune 500 company. And it did it. And then it also said, and by the way, these Fortune 500 companies in Milwaukee are hiring. I'm a new believer. I'm late to the game, but I'm all in on it.
It's cool to hear the use cases that put you over the edge. Those are cool. I'm going to tell my kids about them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, they probably know, right? They're the ones who are going to teach us. My wife's an English teacher. And so for that reason, I get to sometimes hang out with the English department. I had a long conversation with them one day. I was like, guys, how do you know kids don't use AI to write their papers? And they were like, we have our ways. English teachers are mysterious types, but there's cool tools out there that like will tell you if you did it. And they're also like, it's completely obvious. Like if you're working with a 6th grader on writing a paper and their final product is different than the rough draft, something's going on. I was like, oh yeah, I suppose. I haven't written a paper probably since my senior year of college.
What is something new that you would want to learn in the near future?
All right. So it's an interesting one. And I don't want to say that I want to learn it, but I want to significantly improve my quality of being able to do it. So I have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old, and they all love basketball. My 13-year-old has had the same basketball team and the same basketball coach in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and she's going to be the coach in 8th grade. And seeing the team bond and grow and them get better has been amazing. And then my 11-year-old, who's in 5th grade now, has a great coach who has a not so good backup coach for when he can't make it, me. And it was the first time that I realized like they're not just making the kids run back and forth at the end of practice. Like there's a lot going into the experience to make it good. So what I would like to learn in the near future is how to be a better youth athletics coach, because I have two more kids who I could add a little bit of value.
This was amazing. Well, Nick, that's all the time we have today. We really appreciate you being a part of the conversation and what you're doing out there. And thanks again for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.